Okay, so we have delved into sitting and what the effects of sitting are on our pelvic, principally our pelvic musculature. We've also seen how if you spend long durations sitting, how as you go from sitting to standing, how that can have a very significant effect on the position and posture of our pelvis and lower back. So standing is a fundamental skill. It is something that we as a bipedal species need to be able to do, and we need to be able to do it well, because if our standing postures are incorrect or inappropriate, we can very safely assume that the negative effects of a poor standing posture are going to have a negative follow-through effect on how we walk and how we run, and even we can extrapolate and say how we ride a bike. So mastering the art of standing is crucial, particularly now since we are living in an environment where there is a move towards sit-stand desks in the corporate environment, which I do think are valid, but however there are some points that we will discuss in a couple of minutes that you need to take into account relative to sit-stand desks. But standing. So what do the negative effects of sitting look like relative to our standing posture, and how does that affect us going forward into our walk, run, athletic lifestyles? I'm demonstrating now an incredibly common posture. It's called contra posture. So as you can see, I'm sitting into my left hip. All the weight is pretty much in my left hip. Now, what we may remember from the sitting video, it is very common for people to cross one leg over the other leg. Now, if I was to do this, you could assume, and most likely correctly assume, that I would cross my left leg over my right. Now, what this has the effect of doing is, particularly when we're looking at progressing to being a more efficient walker, runner, athletic individual, active individual, as I sit in this contra posture, I am ultimately stretching or lengthening the musculature on my left side pelvis, which is not good. And I'm also lengthening on my side obliques here on my right side, my opposite side of my pelvis. If I'm standing like this with my pelvis dropped, that could very easily or highly likely extrapolate through into what we call a Trendelenburg gait. Now, Trendelenburg gait is when, as I walk or run, when I take one foot off the ground, my pelvis drops. So here you can see my right side pelvis has dropped. This is a positive Trendelenburg sign. We do not want a positive Trendelenburg sign. So that is one example that we will see where a poor sitting posture can affect our standing posture. Another one is if I stand side on, what is my ear, shoulder, hip, knee, ankle alignment like? Most people, because I use a plumb bob, I'll put a plumb bob on your ear, which is a reference marker. Most people with tight musculature or weak musculature through here, or their deep abdominals aren't doing the right job, will stand like this. So they will sit with their shoulder behind their hip joint. Now what that has the effect of doing is it creates a dominance, it creates a tightness through these back muscles, which in turn has an influence on pelvic tilt. So even how we stand, sitting into our hips like this, again will have negative follow through into our more dynamic, active lifestyle. What is also commonly seen is particularly someone who has a poor ergonomic setup in their keyboard when they are sitting. If they are chin protruding forward, we will quite often see the ear sitting forward of the shoulder. Again, that has a negative effect. It will create a tightness through these front neck muscles called sternocleidomastoid, but it can also create a tightness through our thoracic spine because we start to become rounded. Now, the elderly, particularly, being able to maintain an upright posture as we get older is paramount for our well-being. So now that we are, active and we are thinking about moving with efficiency, being upright will have a hugely positive effect in how we age and how we can maintain an upright, active posture as we age. So, how do we stand correctly? What is vitally important as we stand is that we keep weight even on both feet. So I'm not side shifted into my left hip. That is where I would typically want to sit into. Okay, so I'm keeping weight even through both feet. From a side view, my weight is evenly distributed again through my feet. I'm not sitting into my heels, or I'm not leaning forward weighted on my forefoot. My feet are relaxed. I have even distribution across the foot. And what is actually quite important to be able to do is to feel like as you stand, you can gently press your big toe down, just lightly. We do not want your toes, though, scrunching. Okay, so now that we have figured out where our weight distribution is on our feet, where should our pelvis be? Pelvic tilt is everything. I know I'm sounding a little bit dramatic, but pelvic tilt is everything. And in standing, there is only one way that we need to achieve correct pelvic tilt. There is only one way as far as how we are recruiting our deep musculature. As I stand, if I stand here, I'll stand side on, I have got no deep abdominal, no core control in any way, shape or form. You can see my belt reflects my pelvis. It is tipped. So this is a forward tip. That's moving in towards a backward tip. Okay, so as I stand with absolutely no deep abdominal control at all, that is a forward tipped pelvis, and that is poor. What we need to be able to achieve is what is called a neutral pelvic tilt, and there is no one place that it should be. Okay, don't compare yourself to somebody else. This is where the number 5 becomes paramount. If I can get you to achieve from here a forward pelvic tip to here, 5-degree change. The difference in how our muscles are going to operate around our pelvis is significant, and the loading on our spine as well. Okay, so we need to feel like we can tip our pelvis back 5 degrees, and that comes from our deep core pelvic musculature. What we do not want you to do, though, is to squeeze your butt to get the pelvis to tip up or back. If your glutes are squeezed while you are standing, you can't walk because your glutes pull the leg back. If my glutes are engaged to get my pelvis upright, you can't walk. Okay, so this is where a deeper understanding of correct pelvic tilt is paramount. Now, as I mentioned earlier, sit-stand desks are becoming more and more widely accepted and appreciated in the corporate environment. Now, there is a lot of validity in a sit-stand desk, okay? As I mentioned in the sitting video, back in the 90s or the 2000s, there was a move towards sitting on a Swiss ball. When you're working, you're sitting on a Swiss ball because a Swiss ball is going to give me good posture. Well, as I mentioned, you can still slouch sitting on a Swiss ball. I can still stand at a working standing desk and have terrible posture. Okay, so if you are going to use a sit-stand desk, you need to be proactive in how you stand. You need to be proactive. Okay, you do not want to just fall into a slump. Here, rest your elbow down. You need to be proactive. Okay, so take responsibility for how you are standing and the weight distribution on your feet. And the same ergonomic rules apply as far as eye height of your screen, where your keyboard is, where your mouse is. Don't let it drift over here, because then you will start to reach. The shoes you wear, if you are in a sit-stand desk, is also important. For the ladies particularly, maybe some men, but the ladies particularly who like to wear a high heel has a hugely deleterious effect on our pelvic tilt. Okay, so if you're looking at wearing high heels, or if you've got a history of back problems, the smallest heel possible, ideally a flat shoe. Okay, any heel raise will want you to tip your pelvis forward. That tightens up your quads, makes your back muscles get tighter, weakens your glutes. So it's a real snowball effect. Lastly, understanding the concept of standing upright is actually very easy to get wrong. And the reason why I say that is because I'll say to people, as I'll say to them when they're sitting, okay, sit correctly, and everyone will sit bolt upright. If I say to someone, stand up straight, they'll do this. They'll flare their ribs. Okay, so understanding where your pelvis is in space, where your rib cage is in space, is really important. Now, if you suffer from stress or anxiety issues, or you have a high stress job and you breathe high, you become what's called an apical breather, high breathing versus diaphragmatic breathing, that in itself can have an effect on your rib cage position. So if I stand side on and I adjust my rib cage, as I flare my ribs forward, I'm going to be using these back muscles more. We don't want that. What I will also be doing is I'll be lengthening the muscles at the front, particularly your obliques. And if you are a runner, most notably, we don't want long obliques, because that's going to have a negative effect on your trunk control. Okay, so to summarize, think about this next time you're just standing. Look at yourself in a mirror, or get someone to take a photo of you side on and just stand completely normally. Or even get a plumb bob. Get a piece of string with a weight on the end and have someone hang it by your ear. Where does it bisect? It should. The ear, shoulder, hip, knee, ankle should all be aligned. And if you are out of alignment, which the vast majority of people are, trying to find that correct vertical position can actually be quite challenging. So being aware of how to find it is important. It is challenging, but it is also very rewarding, because as we extrapolate through into walking, which is the next video, being able to have a nice vertical standing alignment will make walking profoundly easier. So think about how you're standing and jump into the next video of walking.